I think you're gonna enjoy this one as well because I know Wolfgang can also talk a lot, and he can talk. He can. Welcome to Across the Hemisphere. We're two good friends who share a love for magic, but we live 9,000 miles apart, which is quite tragic. I'm Anja, and I'm from Cape Town, South Africa.
And I'm Colin Eliezer from Charlotte, North Carolina.
And this is Across
the Hemisphere. Okay. I've been waiting long enough. Who do we have on for today's episode?
Should I tell you? Should I? Okay, I'll tell you. So I'm really excited to introduce today's guest. He's one of the most successful magicians in South Africa, and he's also one of my mentors. It's Wolfgang Riebe. Would you mind just giving everyone a short little introduction in case they don't know who you are?
Hi, everyone. I'm Wolfgang. I've been doing magic professionally for 30 years and longer. I live in Cape Town, South Africa. Have traveled all over the world. It's literally not a country I haven't been to except maybe a handful. Had my own TV shows, written many books. You name it, I've lived the dream in a nutshell.
And saying you've written a couple of books is an understatement. How many exactly have you written?
I lost count. You laugh. It's like, I've written so many free books as well because you've got to build up trust, especially today in social media, and if you want people to buy your stuff. So if I had to include those, I'm going to talk about 50 books, if not more. So really hardcover, mainstream, big books, then we're talking about a good 40 odd, and that's a mixture of motivational, inspirational, and magic books.
That's really cool.
And you know how that started? That's the interesting thing. Because as a youngster, I grew up in South Africa, where we had the previous apartheid government. There was sanction against, and we had absolutely no way of getting any magic. So at that time, there was Supreme Magic in England, and they had a magic magazine called the Magic Rand. And as a youngster that was like ever so keen, didn't have the money, couldn't afford it. So I started writing my own and creating my own tricks and sending articles up to Ian Adair, and he'd like send me a £2 credit note, which was like, whoa. And I'd collect these, and then I could have a few, and then I'd like buy a hardcover book like the Ganson book or Ken Brooks or whatever. And in that way, I collected. And in fact, if you take any copy of any Magic Rand, all of them, odds are you're going to find an article of me in it. And that started the whole creative writing process.
That's really, really cool. And you mentioned about apartheid. Now, growing up in South Africa, especially during the apartheid years, maybe you didn't have the opportunities that all the magicians in the USA, UK, and Europe had. Do you think that was a disadvantage for you? And how did you go about that?
Had you asked me that question 5 years ago, I would have said yes. I would still say it was a disadvantage on one side of the spectrum, because at the end of the day, anything that happens magical-wise is in the USA, and then some of it in Europe. So the opportunities, anybody with talent will be able to get somewhere in the USA. But you're pretty much limited outside the USA. And I'm thinking of guys like that have grown up in India, in different countries. So we say UK, Europe, USA, yeah, but the rest of the world, it's a tough one to actually get the recognition and the fame anywhere else. And for many years, I suppose the word begrudged is the wrong word, but I was always like kind of jealous of my colleagues that had all these opportunities the whole time. And yes, we could have flown over, but you had to earn the money and you had to get there and you had to get accommodation, etc., etc. So, and you had to find out about these things. So the positive side of all of this is that because we were so cut off, we had to think for ourselves, where to become creative thinkers. And that also led me to writing so many books, because I started getting used to coming up with my own stuff, because I didn't have anybody, no go-to or no mastermind groups or no well-known buddies that I could share with. And it took me a long time to actually realize that, because during COVID, I left South Africa. I was living in Europe, in Geneva, in Switzerland, and I wrote my autobiography, blatant plug, you see, and the title, Smoke, Mirrors, Braaivleis and Sauerkraut. Now, I wanted to call it, I grew up in apartheid South Africa, what's your excuse? And then a lot of friends said, that's a bit negative and controversial, which was actually what I wanted, because I wanted to bring out that it doesn't matter where you grew up, what your background is. If you have a dream, you can still reach it. But then again, I'm a kind of a comedy magician. I enjoy that more. So this title for me was very true, because Braaivleis, for those of you not from South Africa, that is barbecue. And of course, having been brought up here and being German, the Sauerkraut. So those two get together, and that's the magic. So I wrote this book during COVID just to let my daughters understand one day when I'm not here anymore why they had such a crazy day. Then as I was writing it, I was in comparisons with my mates in Europe, and I was going there, I wish I had the opportunities everybody else did. And then as I started going through my photos and looking at the experiences I had within Africa, I'm like, no, I had a better time. Yes, I may not have the financial assets that the big boys in the USA have, but I have enough. There's also that point, when is enough enough? But I'm really wealthy on experiences. And I'm going to give you an example. A lot of my colleagues that I see outside of Africa want the perfect environment to perform in. They want the parkans, they want the right sound, the lighting, everything must be right, otherwise they can't perform. Africa doesn't work like that. They fly you out to the Kruger National Park, for those of you that don't know that, the big five, all the wild animals, and you're in this lodge, and they take you out in the bush and they expect you to perform your act. There's no microphone, there's nothing. So if I think of one of the memories I have is I'm standing with a fire behind me, my audience sitting around me, in front of me, the Land Rover lights as my lighting have to project my voice, and lions roaring behind me. Now that is the coolest experience ever, man. You just, unless you've been there, you just, there's nothing like it. So now that I'm older, in hindsight, I really feel I'm rich in the experiences and the diversity that I've had, and it's enabled me to perform literally under any circumstances, in any conditions, because I've had to learn to do so. And to me, that's an advantage to my other colleagues out there, if that makes any sense. But yeah, yes, it is. I mean, to answer your question, Anja, in the end, it was a lot tougher. It would have been easier, but I don't begrudge it anymore. How about that?
That's a really, really good answer. And yeah, I've always also felt that, man, I'm in South Africa, I don't have all these like opportunities, but as you said, you learn like a bunch of different things, and when you do have the opportunity to perform internationally, it's like something different that you can bring to the table. And
yeah, this is something, as you get older, your viewpoints in life start changing. When you're younger, you just want to go. I mean, like when I moved to England as a youngster and met all the famous magicians and lectured at the Magic Circle, when I was at the Magic Castle for the first time, it's all great. But as you get older, you calm down a bit, and you start realizing, but hang on, where I grew up is actually very important, because when you work in different countries that are not your own, it is really difficult to connect with the culture of the people. And that's where the traveling has been really good for me, because I've learned to adapt and change. I mean, I worked on cruise liners, not only as a guest entertainer, magician, but also as a cruise director for many years. And the majority of the market is American. And in the beginning, it took me a really long time to kind of connect. And even though I can do it today, I'm still at a disadvantage to my American colleagues, because they can connect much quicker because they grew up there, and you have those nuances that help. So not growing up in a certain country is not necessarily a disadvantage. Take the country that you're in, because you know it, and tweak it and use it to your benefit. Then you can become really great in your country. And at the end of the day, it's one day when you close your eyes, as they say, what memories do you have? Do you have cool, wonderful memories of awesome experiences? Or are you frustrated because you were trying to get into places that would never connect with you? Make the most of where you are, and you can really build up something wonderful. And if you look around at some of the famous magicians, I'm just at the top of my head, Juan Tamariz in Spain. I mean, he's not American, but he got world famous because he just has that awesome personality. You look at different people in different countries that have come out of nowhere because they've gotten famous where they are, and that's brought them somewhere else. So work on your own country. Be proud of what you have. Use the uniqueness of that, and then that promotes you overseas.
That's
Very well said.
really great advice.
So, what do you feel is the key to your 30 years of success as a speaker and a magician?
I'm too old to change. Yeah, Colin. Okay, so I got to clarify something, and stop me if my answer's too long. And that's a good question. As a speaker and a magician, I always wanted to magic. When I started, I moved to the UK, and I literally slept on Euston and Victoria Station in London for 6 months. I walked the streets, I was busking. I was that desperate. It was never about money for me, and I just wanted to do magic. And my parents always said to me, you don't want to be 60 and still standing on stage. And that never meant anything to me when I was younger. Now that I'm that age, I'm like, damn, they were right. I get it now. But luckily, I did listen to them. And I did my undergrad degree. I got my postgrad degree and my PhD and all. And I moved up. And I used that to help me with my magic. So magic has always been my number one. Magic's been my driving force. And then over the years, I started also going onto cruise ships. And when I was on the cruise ships, I got very bored, because as a guest entertainer, you're doing one show a week or one show every 4 or 5 days. And you can only sit in your cabin so much, talk to people so much. That's also why I became a cruise director in management, that I could inspire and motivate people. But what happened when I started out on the cruise ships, I started working on the smaller ships with Hapag-Lloyd, the expedition ships, where I went to the Arctic, the Antarctic, and I had life experiences like running aground near the North Pole. This was on CNN and BBC worldwide. We nearly died in minus 40 degrees. And at the time, it's like, just, do you want to see a car trick? You don't realize the situation you're in. And when I eventually settled down and we started a family, I had to kind of find different things to do, and I focused on the corporate market. And as I met CEOs of companies, we would chat afterwards. So I'm a very social kind of person. I don't just go in and do a show and leave. I try and connect and network, because I always believe every show is a marketing opportunity to get another show. So for me, when I do a performance, I have to get at least one performance out of that again. And often the guys would come up to me and say, man, you've had such an interesting life. Why don't you become a speaker? And I'm like, the one thing I don't want to be is one of these evangelists. Do you believe? And sell me my book afterwards. And that was what motivation was about. I could pick me up, man. So I said, okay, I'll do it, but my way. I'll talk about real life experiences. And anyone that's a bit older, and I did very well when I was younger, and I was very naive, and I made a lot of stupid decisions and lost a lot of money here and there. And I said, and just running aground near the North Pole. And, I had one of the first coolest pictures as a motivational speaker. I was in the South Georgia Island with 100,000 odd king penguins behind me. And they're like really big. They're like gold on their head. And I had a photo of me with them behind me. And my comment was, on my marketing picture was, do you stand out in the crowd? So I had all these really awesome experiences. So my first talk, I made myself vulnerable. I said, look, here I've screwed up in life, and this is how I got over it. And I used magic tricks to amplify every point I made. And in the beginning, people were like, oh, and all this rah stuff was really good. And then suddenly companies wanted what they call ROI, return on investment. And for me, it was anybody that listens to me has got to walk out of my seminar and apply immediately in their own lives for the better right then and there. And I didn't care about them remembering my name. It was like, if you meet me 10 years ago, I'd like you to say, remember what you said there, and this changed my life. And in fact, that's what happened. And suddenly I started taking over from the other guys. I cheesed a lot of people off, but I was different. And in the beginning, I used a lot of magic to actually get me going, because that was my foundation, my security blanket, for want of a better word. But after a few years, I just left the magic out completely. So they've become two separate things, the magic and the motivation. And then adding to that, of course, I also did cruise director work on cruise ships. Now, what a lot of magicians do, and not just magicians, comedians, singers, they'll work for a company and they say, by the way, can you MC our garden up? They go, of course we can. And they think merely because they're an entertainer, they can MC. And that's the biggest mistake you can make. You need to have experience, how to bring people onto stage, how to make them feel important. There are moments you've got to be quiet. It's not about you, it's about them. You know, I've seen people, I've seen ventriloquists that suddenly become MCs, and as they do an award evening, they call out the name, and as the awardee walks up the puppet saying, oh, look, where did you get that top from? And they start ragging the people. And that person's worked a whole year for that award. That's an insult. Then the clients phone me and go, oh, we had this experience. I'm like, well, you booked somebody that has not had years of introducing other acts, hosting events. And, you know, so I market myself as a 3-in-1 guy. So when you have a conference, instead of getting a speaker, a magician, and an MC, I can do all three. Not because I'm a jack of all trades, because over the 30 years, I was actually in each one of those situations. And because the background for me is passion, whatever I do, I just want to connect with people. It's passion. And that comes through in everything. It becomes powerful. And I've known quite a few people that have copied me. You know, my website goes up in a week. Somebody else has got the same thing with their name on it. And they don't last because they can't back it up. So my success is everything I've done has been based on, number one, passion. The magic, I don't believe magic should be number one in a career. We're using magic as a medium to entertain or to motivate. So the likability factor is number one. Arrogance needs to be thrown out of the window. You need to connect with an audience. So when you walk onto that stage, you've got 15, 30 seconds max. They're going to like you. If they don't like you, it doesn't matter what you do. So what are you going to do that's authentic and like the people can see, man, this guy's going to have fun. And for me, my biggest compliment in anything that I do is that when people say to me, we saw that you had fun on stage. Because when they say that to me, I know that they had fun. It rubbed off. So it's that energy and that passion that's got to come through in what you do. But so I started as a magician, had all these weird experiences, that became a speaker, then also from doing the cruise directing, knew how to MC, and I kind of gathered, put together my niche product. And that got me to travel around the entire world as a meetings and events specialist. And even to this day, I'm retired, yeah, but I still have these clients that phone me every now and then. I'm like, oh yeah, I need to be on stage again. I'm going to go do something.
Thank you for that. That was very... No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, thank you for all of that, because that's very informative how being a magician has opened all these other pathways and doors for you. And it's similar to me as a magician. I've really gotten into theatrics and acting and all this stuff. And I mean, if you really think about it, magician, acting, it's kind of in the same pot, if you would.
Yeah, but we are actors. I mean, when you surprise something, I mean, you're messing with people's minds. That's acting.
Yes.
You're setting yourself as a mentalist. Damn, you're acting.
Now,
but it's
you
also,
mentioned...
I think it's... Sorry,
sorry, go on.
No.
So you mentioned being a public speaker, and so you've probably spoken in front of a lot of people, and I know myself included, I sometimes get a little nervous before I go on stage. So do you have like a little ritual that you do backstage to kind of help calm the nerves?
Alcohol. Kidding. I never drink unless I'm alone or at functions. No, I've never had, this is weird, and you're not, I don't know if you're going to believe me or not, I've never been nervous in my life. The more people I'm in front of, if you put me in front of 5,000 people, I'm like, yeah, I love more people. I mean, the first live television show I did, I think was 11 million people or something. My wife didn't know. And as we walked on, I said, we laughed. She's like, wow! I dig it. And my own, see, I have this course, I mentor people, I teach people as well. And I always say, nerves, yes, we all have nerves, especially when you're new in the game. But to me, you don't need to be nervous and have stage fright if you know what you're doing. Don't go out and test something that you don't know. And there's a stunning book, and Napoleon Hill wrote this book yonks ago, Think and Grow Rich. And then when I was in the speaking industry, I was part of the National Speakers Association in America, one of their CSPs, and there was a really stunning lady that brought out a book, Speak and Grow Rich, and it's like the Bible of the speaking industry. And the advice she gave me there, you can apply to Magic as well. And she said, before you charge for a keynote, do it 100 times for free. And I want you to think about that. If you do your magic act 100 times for free, whether it's in old age homes, for charities, wherever, anything that can go wrong will have gone wrong. You will know that thing in the back of your head. I mean, I've seen so many speakers come on and then there's a power failure and the keynote crashes and they can't speak. I'm like, how often have you done the talk? If you've done it 100 times, you don't need a keynote. And this is the same with magic. I don't need a backup notes and a special lighting effect over there, whatever. If I've done it 100 times, I'm comfortable. And then I don't have stage fright. So that's been and of course, okay, having said that, let's also be honest, I've also tried to put stuff in without rehearsing. And have I had mishaps in my life? Have I embarrassed myself? Oh man, I don't put my foot in it. I put my whole left side of the body in it, okay? But I've done it. But as you get older and more experienced, I've also found that you kind of know what you can get away with, what you can do. And if I do find something that's unique and that I think I can use, I will put it within an established act. So if I have 10 tricks I'm doing, I'll swap it out with one of them. So if it kind of duffs out, I know my other stuff will bring it back up. And that's a way to get it into the live environment that I can tweak it, and then after a few times, okay, now I can put it into a new act.
That's some really, really good advice. So
yeah.
So a few of the golden rules that we have for today so far, it's before you just before you charge for a show, make sure you've done it 100 times and you're comfortable with it and you know what you're doing, because then you don't have to be nervous.
Mm-hmm.
And what's that other thing you said at the previous question? You had a really good point you brought up.
Be passionate about what you're doing. Yes. Magic is a medium.
Yes. Yes. Magic is only the medium. Passion is the top thing. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, when you're, and here's another tip for you guys as well. Don't buy every magic DVD that's out there, because in 5 years' time, DVDs are out, as you know, now it's MP3s and all online. And I used to have this huge library. I must have a few thousand teaching DVD. First, they were videos. Then I had to convert them into DVD and whatever. But half of them were not magicians. Half of them were other entertainers, comedians, singers, etc., because magic wasn't number one for me. Magic was number 3 or 4. Entertainment was number 1. So by me watching, how does that comedian walk on stage, get a reaction? How does that singer get that reaction? And, you know, in academics, when you steal from one person, it's called plagiarism. When you steal from 30, it's called research. So now, when you steal from one magician, that's stealing that. But if you take 30 guys and there's a comedian, a singer, whatever, and you just use a little bit of everybody else and you tweak it around yourself, you've suddenly created something new. And only by watching different people. I'll give you an example. I don't know if you know who Emcee Magic is. He's a Dutch violinist with an orchestra. The ladies dressed like ballet dancers, the guys have got tuxedos on. And the Germans take, classical music very seriously. But the Dutch, this guy jokes. He has fun. They laugh. And the guy's in his 70s, and he's like, whoa, he has everybody hanging on his lips. I look at him, I go, what is he doing different to others? How does he dress? And he's always got like a nice brooch or something different. I went, I like that idea. I'm going to take that because people will look at me because I'm not wearing a bow tie or a normal tie, something different. Then I look at comedians. I saw one comedian that walked onto stage. The curtain was open before he started his act. And his name was there, and suddenly the name disappeared like a PowerPoint presentation with typewriting letters. And it suddenly went, hello. Everybody ignored it. Then it went, I said hello, and the whole audience went, hello. And they started reacting with a PowerPoint presentation 10 minutes before he walked onto stage. And they were in hysterics. I'm like, damn, that's clever. So there are all these things and all these ideas you pick up from different people. And you take them and you mold them in your own. But if you're just looking at magicians, you're going to be like everybody else. If you want to be different, start looking at all the brilliant talent out there.
That's very good. That's very good. I like what you said. If you steal from one person, it's stealing or plagiarism. But if you steal from 30, it's research.
That's academics for you.
So you brought up something, and I just want to. I did my research before this interview, and I went on YouTube, I went on Google, searched your name, and I learned that you also teach youth magic. Is there one style of magic that you find easier to teach?
Okay, how do I answer that? My criticism with magic schools is that they clone people. It's always the same stuff. And it's always the same stuff that they teach. And we are all, and there's that wonderful saying, you're different, just like everybody else. Okay? But we are all different. And if I have somebody that's interested in magic, I look at that person and I try and figure out what makes them tick. What are they comfortable with? Not everybody's comfortable with speaking. Some people are more suited to a music act. I do a music act, you're going to laugh and run away because I can't. We used to do a production show and then there's 2, 3, 2. I was always late. I couldn't get it. That's why I do comedy and talk nonsense. But not everybody can do that. So, some people are more into their sleight of hand and closer. In my generation, when we started, we did everything. So I really went through the whole spectrum and then I found, okay, there's something I like. But when I meet somebody now, the number one thing for me is to build confidence. And the people I've mentored, the first thing I do is I teach them the business of magic. And I think I'm the first guy that actually wrote a book, Financial Savvy for Magicians. Because I know so many really cool magicians that they're church mouses, they're broke, they don't have anything. I'm like, guys, we need to get respect in this profession and we need to build for our future. You need to understand that this is also a business and you've got to treat it as such. And you can only treat it as such when you're offering a professional product. You can't be, when I was a youngster, I had a business called Magician for All Occasions. I had all these mothers phone me up with weird requests. I'll just let you think about that one. Okay? And it's like, you can't be that. You have to be a card magician. You have to find your niche, as you say in the States. You have to be a stage magician. You have to be whatever. And you have to focus on that. So these days, I only focus on parlor come stage magic. That's what I specialize in. I love the other stuff. I'll play with it, but I won't go and book myself out for the other stuff. So if I get a new student in, I sit with them, I let them do a bit of stage, I let them do a bit of close-up. We play with a lot of stuff. And then I see where do their eyes sparkle? Where does their personality come out? And then I will focus on that one and let them build up from there. At the same time, always teaching them the financial aspect as well. So I don't just teach magic, I give you an all-round education. And I've got quite a few people I've taught, and not one of them is poor, if I can put it that way. So it's really great because I can see they actually took their advice.
That's That's really, really good. And I think that's the best way to do it. You don't force someone to do something that they don't want to do. You kind of see where they're naturally drawn to. I think that's a really good way to do it.
And you'll find one day when you're older, I mean, I can stand with my back to you and you can be performing. And just by listening to you, I can know whether it's right for you or whether you've got that spark or not. You start picking it up after a while. And sometimes, I mean, we had a competition in this country now recently, and of all the acts, one of the guys that didn't even win, but he to me had the most talent, and he's the one I will take aside and mentor because he's going to get somewhere. You start picking this up.
That's really cool. Now, you mentioned you also give them business advice. What is some business advice that you would give to up-and-coming or aspiring performers and magicians?
Read more books than buying tricks. Have you ever been to a Magic Club meeting when they have an auction and there are tricks that you spend $100 on that are going for $5 and people can't even get rid of? If you are informed, with knowledge comes power. The more you read, the more you know, and the more you realize how little you know. But anyway, a book you can get 3 or 4 or 5 tricks out of. When you're buying a trick, you're limiting yourself to a trick. And over the years, how many colleagues have I seen that have said, if I spend $5,000 on that trick, I'm going to be up there. Then they buy the thing and they duff out because they don't have the personality that goes with it. Tricks, you need to be really honest with yourself. And you need to know what suits you. And these days, and I think if you speak to most professionals that are working most of the time, they don't buy stuff from magic shops. I annoy magic dealers because I'll stand there for hours like, no, just because I know what suits me. I make my own props. And if you're buying from a dealer, you're buying a canned trick. You're buying somewhere that something that everybody's got. Where are you different? Where are you unique? The first thing that I teach you in business is what is your USP, your unique selling point. What makes you different to that magician or that magician over there? And if you do this stuff differently, then you're different. And then I think, and I talk about my generation, the money we've wasted on the crap we've bought from dealers, you have no idea. And I mean, we just had catalogs we could look in. You guys have videos, you can get reviews, you can see the stuff. We couldn't. We just got a marketing description and we were taken for hundreds and thousands of dollars. So for me, it's like, read up, be wise, know what you're getting into, and buy selectively that you know is going to suit your personality. And when you do a show, there's one of the greatest principles that I always share with the new guys is there's something called the Mercedes principle. If you look at a Mercedes, it's got the star on the hood, and that's divided into thirds. So whatever you earn, a third of the money needs to cover your costs and expenses. The other third, you need to invest for your future. And the remaining third, that you can blow. If you want to buy new tricks or go and eat out. And if you apply that principle in magic and look at magic as a business, then you're going to be successful. It's very simple. Because most tricks, when we see them, and when we know how they work, damn simple. Financial is also simple when you understand just the basics.
I hope everyone will be thinking of Mercedes cars next time they walk into a dealer's room or a magic shop and want to buy something. I hope they think of what Wolfgang said. I have to spend a third, I can spend a third, invest a third, and the other third has to cover.
It's not easy to do, but if you can, as a young person, train yourself to do that.
So this next question that I would like to move on to is actually one we asked in the previous episode, and it really got kind of like deep into topic. If you could be with one person, living or deceased, that you would like to spend at least 30 minutes with, and why?
Must it be a magician or non-magician?
Whoever you want to choose.
Okay. Anja will have no idea who I'm talking about. Colin, you may. Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. But I just read her autobiography, Cruelly Yours. This woman, what she has gone through in life, I mean, I'm in awe of her. I think she should be a role model to all women out there. She has taken charge of her life and she's been knocked down. She's brought herself back up. but she's a one-man conqueress. And what she's achieved especially with the image she's created with the role, what a fantastic story. And I would actually just really love to sit with her, because, in life, we don't always get what we want. Failure is part of it. People will get jealous. People will knock us down. But she's like a stand-up toy. She's back up there and she's out there. And I mean, wow. And I think she's 72 today. She's still going out there and she's dynamic. And I really, really respect someone with a drive like that, and setting the image and the persona she did and the success she achieved all on her own. So that's why I said, to me, that's somebody I'd really enjoy spending a bit of time with, because I have huge respect for her.
Yes. And I mean, she's an icon, and I mean, very, very, very like great entertainer, great person, because I've seen interviews with her.
And when she did that first lot of TV shows where she was hosting the horror shows, every time they wanted to renew a contract, what did she do? They didn't have more money. So she said, well, give me the rights for the clothes. Give me the rights for the figures. Give me the rights for whatever. And in the end, she had all the rights for everything. She's a very clever woman. And she also, I mean, reading a book, I'm like, that's what magic is what. You've got to be a little bit shrewd. You've got to look at the business side. I'll never forget, I was so grateful and I was so privileged that when I was in the UK, Paul Daniels took me under his wing. And through a friend, I met Paul Daniels. I mean, I had nothing, and he picks me up in his Rolls and his Ferrari. He still bought Roger Moore's house in High Denham in Uxbridge. And he would sit with me, watch my shows, and he would just mentor me and talk to me. I mean, I was a nobody. And I was like, wow, this man is spending time with me. And I'll never forget, he said to me, the first $1 million he made was not from performing, was from selling magic sets. Clever man. So, there's a bigger picture to everything.
And would you say that your family is magical? And what I mean by that is, would you say everyone in the family is involved with your magic or your magic shows? And do you think someone can do it alone, or is it easier to do it with the help and support of your family?
Oh, that's a no-brainer. You need the support of your family. I mean, even in my first TV shows, it's always as a magician, you see the magic show, they've got all these beautiful assistants, whatever. And when my daughters were 5 and 7, I got them in little ballerina outfits and came on. Those shows got the biggest reviews because, it's cute. They were on stage then already. They were always part of everything we did when we filmed TV shows. Even though it was going late at night, they'd always be backstage sleeping. In fact, it was interesting because I moved back to South Africa a few months ago, and I did a public show. You were there, Anja, and somebody made a comment. My daughter was actually up front welcoming people, selling product. My wife was in there welcoming people. It's a family team. And I mean, even my home, it's the Magic Manor. It's like a mini magic castle here in Cape Town. I mean, I've got a really nice wife. She allows me to do this. There's magic everywhere. It's from a Harry Potter room to a magic library to a magic bar to a 34-seater theater. It's like I bought a dragon now in the garden that fits as you come down the stairs. So it's very important that you have that team. And also, when you're younger, you need somebody to say to you, you're a schmuck. That doesn't suit you. Because, we're entertainers, which means we're a type A personality. And you're like, you get too into yourself. You do get a big head, and you need somebody to push you down and say, no, don't do that. That doesn't work with you. And if it wasn't for my family and friends where I'm doing stuff which I'm thinking is great, they're going, no, it's not going to work. And then, of course, the first few times you don't listen. Then they go, we told you so, but now you learn to listen. So I make lesser mistakes because I listen to my family. And I mean, I'm really chuffed that even today, both my girls, which are now 24 and 26, they even support me at this point. And my wife has always been there all the way. And that makes such a difference. So, yes, we are a very magical family.
Yes, I've been at the Magic Manor a few times, and I can confirm there's magic everywhere. but it looks really, really cool. And yes, I know my family, they support me on my magic journey, and it definitely does help a lot. My dad runs most of my tech because I'm not very tech savvy. So yes, Colin, what is your family like? Very interested in your magic?
Yeah, they are, and I feel kind of bad because both of my parents have office jobs, and I've kind of drugged them into this career for the past 12 years. But they are very, very supportive. And my show is mainly a one-man show, but occasionally they do help out where they need to, if it's running sound, running ticket booth, ushering, filming the show, because I try to film every single show that I possibly can. Because to me, it helps out if I can sit back, plug in the camera, and watch the show. And that's how I learn, is I sit there and I watch and I see, oh, ooh, that really didn't get the reaction, or oh, I could put that there instead. And so they've been with it for the past 12 years, and people always think that it's just been in the family, that I've had a family of magicians, but no, this was my thing that I got into 12 years ago, and it's taken me all over.
Makes a difference when the family is there for you. Big
Yes.
time. I mean, I remember growing up, my parents were never into the magic, and I had to very much go it on my own. And I think one of the reasons I actually achieved what I did is because my whole thing was to prove them wrong. I can do it. But I mean, that's why with my family, I was just so grateful that they were involved. And from day one, I mean, I used to be, we had, you guys don't even know what that means. We had national service. So we were drafted for 2 years in the military. So I was still a naval officer. My wife was a nursing sister. And we were, 8 to 5 in our jobs, and lunchtime. So we'd each drive like 40 minutes, meet in a central spot, off with our uniforms, into the gear, and do a show, and then go back to work. I mean, we started working like it. At night, we'd go and tour and do travel shows, and we always did the stuff together.
Yeah, that. I don't know, national service. It seems really, really scary. Can you talk a little bit about your experiences on that?
That's when I learned not to trust any government. Bottom line. No, it's like, I mean, you know what, the politicians are carrying on with themselves. They don't send their kids to go fight. I mean, look at the world today. I mean, to this day, I 100% believe the world would be better off without politicians, because they just screw up the world. And I mean, that's when I learned it. We've had to fight terrorists that today are ruling our country. Who was right? Who was wrong? Things just turn, and how many lives were lost, and all that unnecessary stuff. I mean, wars in general, I have no time for. I'm a lover of peace and respecting everybody. In fact, on that note, many years ago, my oldest daughter came to me with a Facebook post that said, I think it was this American singer Eminem that said, "If you respect me, I'll respect you back." And had like 7 million likes. And I'm like, that's the worst saying I've ever seen. And she didn't get it. And that started me, because I'd already done speaking, to create my own quotes. And I brought out a book with 250 of my own quotes. And my first quote was inspired by that quote. And I changed it to say, "I will always respect you first. What you do with that respect determines our relationship to the future." And I think we're sitting in a situation today where everybody wants to be respected and is entitled. And if you don't agree with me, I'm offended, I'm going to beat you up, I'm going to go, this is crap. It shouldn't be like that. We should all respect each other. And the fascinating thing for me, having traveled the whole world now, is, I mean, I've performed, you daren't say that in the United States, I've performed in Iran. I've traveled that whole country from Isfahan, Yazd, all these places. I've been to places where most people haven't been. And you see the stuff in the media and what the lies the politicians tell you. And then you meet the people and you go, oh my God, what beautiful souls. Wow. So everywhere I've gone, I've realized, but hang on a minute. This is completely different to what's been told to me by the media. And it calms you down a lot and makes you realize, you know what, we just need to start not listening to fake news and not being influenced by politicians anymore. Sorry, I mean, that's off the topic of magic. But these days as well, it's like, I just want to embrace everybody, multicultural, whatever. And I have that saying, I say, around the world, I have brothers and sisters from another mother all over, simply because I've just opened up and accepted everybody. And that makes the world such a fantastic place.
It really does. I also I love meeting new people, and I really love that saying where you always have to respect the other person first, and depending on what they want to do with that respect. I agree with that. I'll always respect everyone. Yeah.
Because if you understand cognitive brain function, and I lecture a lot about that, is whether we want to believe it or not, we've been conditioned by the society, the socio-cultural circumstances we've been brought up in, by our parents, by whatever. So we are judgmental without wanting to be, because that's how our brain works. And when you can understand that, and when you can just take that step back, because, you know, we meet somebody that doesn't quite suit our tastes, and we immediately are judgmental, we think schmuck. But if you aren't, and you actually, if you give them a white sheet of paper and let them write on there who they are, that 90% of people that you think were schmucks are suddenly the most beautiful souls out, simply because you give them a chance. And if we can just all do that a lot more. And that's the same thing when I go out and do shows. I will never disrespect my audience. I do kind of a bit of an esoteric thing. When I go out, I imagine this big white light shining right out of me into everybody, pure white light, to bring everybody in. And to me, that's it. Accept everybody, becomes a wonderful world.
Yes, very much.
Very well said. So we kind of hit on this a little bit earlier. Besides fitting in to the piece of magic that is meant for you, in your opinion, what also makes a great magician?
Humility and passion. Humility and passion, I think, are important. And I think I touched on it early on. The authenticity. Find out who you are. And I say this with respect. When I was a youngster, man, I was a Lance Burton clone. I was a David Copperfield clone. I was like, wow, this, and because I was in awe of them. And it took me a long time to realize, but hang on, you can't be one of them. You got to be you. And it's really difficult sometimes. And here's a great tip. So how do you find out who you are? Because in our own eyes, we have this view who we are. But the greatest tip that I can give you is take your social circle, take your family and your close social circle, but have at least 20 of them, and ask them to write down in 1 or 2 words how they see you. They can do it anonymously, and you collect the papers, and you'll be surprised how people see you. And when you have that collection of there, you can say, but hang on, I never looked at myself as a funny guy, or as a serious guy, or as a crazy person. And when that all comes out, it's like, you know, when you say talk show host, who do you think of immediately? You think of Oprah, worldwide. And certain words so come up of certain people. And if you can have that one word that kind of epitomizes who you are, but your friends can only tell you that honestly, and that then helps to guide you into a certain direction. Because for me, everyone says I'm a joker. I'm like, okay, so I did comedy magic. Okay, that's kind of my thing. But I'm also a straight shooter. So these are all good things that come out that I found out because friends were honest with me and family and told me this. And in that way, once you can find out who you really are, because we all want to believe a certain picture, but it's not always the real truth. And when you have that, and when you have when you are open enough to accept that, then the growth and your style of magic starts building in a wonderful direction.
That's some really good advice. And I believe you've had the first magical South African TV series that was on national television. Now, what are some of the challenges you faced when you were filming it? And also, what inspired you to create it?
Okay, sadly, I wasn't the first. It was one thing I can say. I've been the first in a lot of things, but not in that. So in the 70s, there was a chap called Martino that was the first. When television started. Television started in South Africa much later than in Europe and the States. And he had the first television series, and I used to watch him, and he inspired me. And there was a big break. I mean, there was literally like 30-year break. And then I came along. And then I had a number of series. They were all prime time. I got records with viewership ratings. And I stopped counting at about, between my series and guest appearances and whatever, more than 200 over a period of time. And what a lot of magicians don't understand, and there was a big break again. We've had 1 or 2 guys here that have gotten on television, but they duff out after a few programs and they're disappointed. Why am I not famous and why isn't it going? And I remember when I did my series, because I studied academics and also psychology and understood business, and I had my own production company, so I understood how television worked and how television. You see, here's the thing: when a magician goes on television, the first thing they think of is themselves and look how great I can be, and I want to be famous. But they don't realize that no producer, no director, they don't give a rat's behind about how great you are and who you are. All they care about is how much advertising revenue am I sending on this program and how many viewers are there that I can charge the highest rates for the advertising. And if you don't get that, you'll never be on television in a long time. You have to do what the masses want. Now in this country, they call them LSM groups, up to 12. So what is the viewer public? What is the status, the socioeconomic status of the public that's watching me? So if I'm dealing with post-grad academics, but I'm dealing with middle and lower middle class. It's kind of the masses that are watching me. So I've got to do what appeals to them, what's going to make them put their television on so that the producers can sell ad revenue. And once you understand that, your whole approach becomes a lot different. So I still lost it with some of the magicians in this country because there were a few sarcastic people that had no idea what was going on. And of course, they sat with a mouthful of teeth in the end because Riebe was right. And a good feeling, but it wasn't about that. And they didn't understand it. So the first series I ever did, first of all, I got a guest on because as a first series, yes, I was the star of the show, but I wasn't known. So how do I get people to click that channel to watch me? Get somebody that's known as my guest, that's really known. So there's already appeal to put it on because he's there. I didn't tell him, he was a comedian. I didn't tell him what I was going to do. So everything was ad-libbing. But one segment of the show, what we did is I would do a close-up trick. I'd explain a trick. I live in a country that's still quite religious from the one population group, from the other population group that's very believes in witchcraft. So you come on as a magician, you're causing a raucous on two sides of the spectrum. So for me, it was very important to teach a trick, a simple trick that you can get in any kid's magic set, but to make the people realize there's no such thing as magic. And then I'd also do a close-up trick. But while we were sitting opposite the tables, I said, let's sit on different chairs every time in every program. One day we sat on chairs. The next day we got toilet bowls from a hardware store. We sat on that. Next day we sat on bales of hay. Then we were on bicycles. People would tune in to see what we were sitting on. And the magicians were going, what the hell has that got to do with magic? No, it's got to do with getting viewers to look at the show. You can't just, we might find, I see a magician that gets 10 people to choose a card and he finds all 10 cards. Technically, I'm really impressed, but it bores the living crap out of everybody. Who cares? Do one chosen card and appearance and do it properly and powerfully. And this is the same with television as a medium. You've got to, if you look, talent shows years ago, you had to do half an hour to win a talent show. Today, Got Talent, 2 minutes. Those people that win the shows, can they keep somebody busy for an hour? If you want one of those talent shows, maybe you can do 4 minutes, but a television program, a half-hour program is 24 minutes. An hour program is 48 minutes. Can you do 13 of those? Can you do 26? How many series can you do? So you have to look at the entertainment factor. We come back to magic is only a medium. So by bringing in all these different elements, and that was the secret to my success, because I understood that. And I listened, and I asked questions, I researched. I didn't just go on and say, okay, I'm going to do magic. I went, okay, what will appeal? What was here and there? I mean, I included a street magic section. I looked at a certain culture. How do these people think? What do they find funny? I got my friends in that cultural group, and I had a brainstorming session with them. What do you think will work? So we had all these different elements, so it would appeal to a bigger group of people. And I mean, that was the learning curve. And then I see them in it. Now somebody else comes along and gets a mini series, and they go, oh, we didn't get another series. I said, because you're only doing what you wanted to do. You didn't do what the public wanted. And that's what's so important. In general, if you want to be successful as a magician, you've got to do what people will pay ticket money for to come and see.
Very well said.
Yes, that just goes to show you how magic, you can do magic, but if you don't know what the people want, and you have to look at the business side and the more psychological side, and there's all these other little factors that you have to take into consideration for your magic to be magical and really good.
Exactly.
And I think that's really an eye-opener, especially to me, because I sometimes, when I'm putting a show together, I do a lot of the stuff that I enjoy doing, but when I look at how the audience reacts to it, it's not always the best. And so you have to do what the audience wants you to do. So
I remember when I started comedy, I mean, I was on ships and I was only doing the magic act. And we had a big production show with the illusions and the dancers and everything. And then the comedians would come on. I had 1 ton's worth of equipment. A comedian would come on with 1 suitcase and his computer games. And that was it. It was getting paid more than me. And they were doing jokes, and I was like, oh, and then I would, you know, being younger, swipe a joke here, swipe a joke there, and nobody would laugh. And I'm like, why? I couldn't understand it. Because I wasn't doing what was suited to me for my age group, and I was taking somebody else's stuff, and I wasn't taking the audience into consideration. When you work on cruise ships, you've got an older clientele. They go on excursions the whole day. They have dinner. They drink a glass of wine. They come into the show. They fall asleep. I'll fall asleep. But I was a youngster and they fall asleep. I go, hey, what's this? A cemetery with neon lights. I thought it was funny. It wasn't actually an insult for them. But this was a comment I got from another older guy, comedian, who could get away with it. I couldn't get away with it. And this is where it comes in. You have got to know your audience. And that's also an interesting story. If you as a younger person are working on a cruise ship that's older, you've got to make those older people want to take you home as their grandchild. That's your approach. If you're older their age, you can get away with tongue-in-cheek stuff and be a bit more cheeky. You can't do that when you're younger. And this is where a lot of magicians completely fall flat and they don't understand it. It's not just about the trick. It's about really respecting and understanding your audience. And I don't care admitting it because I fell on my face 100 times, but that's how I learned.
Experience really is the best way to learn everything. And I think it was in the first episode that Lance Burton said this: you're going to have shows that are going to go horrible. They're going to blow up in your face, but that's where you get the best experience from.
That's how you learn. Yeah.
Very much so.
And that's why even I keep footage of like shows that did not go right. I keep the footage of it because I always go back and go, okay, what could I do better? And I always go back there and then I always see, well, did it progress? Like if I go see footage from the same show that I failed on, did I progress in that show? Do I still need to go forward? And that's, like Lance said, that's how you learn.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. Be open to learn as well.
Yeah. So you mentioned that your house is like the Magic Castle of South Africa. Is there any piece in your collection that means a lot to you and why?
Actually, I didn't think about it. I have all sorts of stuff. Yeah, I've got some stuff from television shows that I've put up. It actually only means something to me. I've also learned that what I collect and put out there, I try and make it accessible. And when magicians walk in, they can actually see it and immediately get it and enjoy it. Half the stuff is kind of mine. I've got like old tricks, antique tricks in frames, which I really enjoy. I think my library is the biggest thing that I enjoy because of the books, and I'm an avid reader. I also created a barbecue room as a Harry Potter room. I didn't want to just have purely magic. And if you ask me, there's one thing I actually found. If you watch the Harry Potter film, they had this chocolate frog. And I actually found a chocolate frog. I mean, it's not it's like made of latex rubber, but it looks like the chocolate frog. It feels like chocolate. And that's one of the coolest things in there. I'm even doing tricks and making it vanish and that. But if I look at, I've got like things that I used years ago that I'll keep in it means something to me. It's special. I've got like my first dove pan I ever had and things like that. But the whole house is, I've also learned over the years not to become too attached to things either. So, we live in a world where anything can happen. So I put it out there actually for everybody else's enjoyment. And my biggest kick, what I enjoy the most is when people come in and they enjoy what's out there. But the thing that I really like the most is what I did is I created in the library a table, a close-up table, but the stand is actually made up of books. So you don't have one pillar; it's made up of little books. So it looks like books standing on top of each other. And then the top, besides the padded velvet thing, I put a frame of every magician that's influenced me around there, including magicians that influenced me in South Africa to try as a remembrance and as a recognition of them. So that table, the thing that means the most to me that I would always want to have with me would be that table, because I made it myself, and also just the memories of all the magicians on there.
That's really, really cool. I'm pretty sure I've seen the table, and it looks
You sat
it's
around
a
at
really
the
cool table. Yeah. Now, apart from magic and public speaking, are there any other hobbies that you have?
Red wine and whiskey. Don't laugh, I'm at that age now. I used to be, you're going to laugh, I used to be, when I started as a youngster, I was a professional ice skater. So I was a freestyle skater, gold medalist, did the double axels and all that. And I used to do the ice show. So I'd play like in Aladdin, I'd be Abracadabra, the Wicked Magician, which was really cool because I'd have a principal skating role and do magic on ice. But of course, now that I'm older, but you don't want to be on ice anymore. Used to do that. Used to be very much into bodybuilding and weightlifting. And but otherwise, I'm very much into lecturing on wines and whiskeys. Because of the cruise directing work I did, I also traveled around the world and went to all these places, had to sell excursions to guests, had a lecture on them, had to do the tastings. So I've even taken that and come up with my own tricks from bottles of wine around the world and give a bit of background, they disappear, whatever. So I've incorporated that. But I would say that's pretty much it.
I never knew you did.
Oh yes, big time video editing. So every time I bring out a trick that I sell, or I do a trick of the week, I've got this whole, I've got about 130 already, trick of the weeks, whatever, shoot them myself in the studio, edit them on Final Cut, and I mean, I love that creative side of things.
That's really, really cool. I never knew that you did ice skating. I'm trying to picture you like on the ice skates.
Yeah, don't. you know what? I'll tell you a funny story. It was one of the ice shows. We still did the Benares Temple, and again, this is experience. So you're doing it, and it's like a 3-month season for the show, and like 6 weeks into the season, as my assistant gets in the Benares Temple, I'm sticking the swords in, and she falls out the bottom, doof, because I didn't realize. It's wet, it's moist. The illusion had been standing on the ice for 6 weeks and it rotted the wood at the bottom. So it's like, these are the kind of things you will never think of if you've never been in that situation. It's like, talk about rebuilding an illusion quickly, man. Yeah.
Was the assistant okay?
Yeah, she was okay. This is a bit embarrassing for both of us, but that's what happens. The magician says they've never had things go wrong to them. They're lying to you.
Oh, man.
And that when you're young, it's like not good for your ego, man.
So we also hit on this earlier on about different countries and different audiences. Do you find that different styles of magic works better in other styles or other countries? Like we know that there's some countries who really enjoy their coin magic. There's others that are really into like the cards.
Yeah, it's when you travel internationally, I think that's the biggest challenge, is to find a trick that will work with everyone, that will appeal to the mass market. If you can do that, that helps a lot. I think that when you have what, if you take music, a #1 hit, they call it a cover. The purists, the musicians that are purists, hate covers. And I think this is the same with magic. You'll get the finger flicker, the purist, and you'll get the guy that's doing the Chinese sticks and whatever, and the card in orange, and he's getting the money because it's the cover stuff. You've got to do what the masses want. So if you have an act that appeals to the masses, you can do it everywhere. You're a bit limited if you're doing patter. If you've got a music act, if I take like Lance Burton, that his dove act had international appeal. It was just wow. And the challenge is finding something like that for international appeal. I find that when I'm doing the corporate events, I focus on the EMEA market, Middle East, Africa, and India. And I've got a diverse amount of cultures. And it's taken years to find things that appeal to everybody. So if you're going to go to different countries, keep it simple, because language and culture is a barrier. But the simpler you keep it, the easier it is to get the trick across. So you can't do nuances and play on words and stuff like that. Then it's okay. Countries, I find the States likes the showy stuff. They want the big grand, the show, the lights, whatever. I'm like, nah. If it doesn't fit in a pilot's case, I don't do it. So I would rather go to a country that will be quite happy with the normal stand-up and parlor stuff. Having said that, I mean, obviously, if you've got a big name act and doing a big show, that's part of it. But in general, I just enjoy the good stand-up stuff that will work in English-speaking countries. I mean, even being German, with German being my home language, man, even you can't translate jokes and you can't translate certain things. So they tend to have they do have there's a different style of magic that they do there. Again, you've got to understand it. You've got to have been brought up there. So I wouldn't say it's different close-up coins, cards, whatever. It's whatever you do, if you're making it commercial, appeal to the masses, you can do it anywhere.
Again, that's some really great advice as well. And I think that really does go to show you that the more experience you have, that you learn all these things with time. And I've mentioned this in the previous episodes before, but that's why we're doing this podcast. It's so everyone can learn from other magicians.
If you think about, I'm not going to mention names, but some better known street magicians have come and shot some stuff in South Africa. And we have our poorer areas, our shanty towns. And they'll come and do tricks there, and it just doesn't register. It just dies. Why? Because they don't understand the culture and the way of thinking. And that's exactly, so when you do go to another country, first thing you need to do is actually research how the people think, what makes them tick.
That just full circles back to when you're performing magic. You have all these little factors that you have to take in consideration for the magic to really seem magical. And just kind of on that topic, do you have a favorite style of magic or type of magic that you like to perform, and why?
Yeah, I'm very much into the let's call it parlor magic. It's stage magic as well, but the parlor, comedy and magic. Because again, this is, and I don't mean to offend anyone, I find magic boring. Because just standing there, look how clever I am. Come on. But if I can add comedy to it, so I can be a comedian and a magician, I'm appealing to two groups instead of just one group. And if a trick does duff out, it's part of the comedy. Yeah, but it just mixing the two goes back to that entertainment element for me. And I just love it. And I'll take a scenario, a story. I'll take a current world happening, and I go, okay, I can find a trick and I can fit into that, and I can add a few lines and stories around it. Because to me, you've got to connect with the audience. To take, for example, a sponge ball. That's something a layman can't relate to. If you want to call it an underwater eraser or whatever, yeah, but they can't relate to that. But if I take out a money note, they can relate to that. So it's like doing tricks with things that people can relate to, having a story that they can connect with it, and then making it entertaining. And that's why I find that the comedy patter with powerful tricks, that's what I really enjoy. So if I do an hour show, I might do 10 tricks maximum, not more, because I'm talking and having fun and connecting.
That's something that I always try to do. And that's why I've always garnered to like storytelling with magic, is so that the audience, yeah.
And Copperfield was the first guy that actually started that.
Yes.
And I'll never forget. I was still a youngster. I was taking part in a German magic competition. Went up to Hamburg and met another magician, and we were sitting at a public show by another group of magicians. And this guy got a young girl up, and he sat on the edge of the stage. Got a little young girl up, put her on his lap, and said, "You know, when I was your age, my grandfather told me this story, and he did this again. He did the gypsy thread, but they just had a spotlight on him, and with a little girl, and he was an older guy, and the grandfather story coming through, and the magic in the child's face. I was like, whoa!" And there was no comedy, but it's like, oh man, it was powerful. And that's the storytelling. Beautiful.
And because I saw David's show in 2013, and it's been a while since I've seen his show. And I sat there, watched it, and I'm like, I think I found the style of magic that inspires me, is the whole storytelling, the theatrics behind it, because I mean it is powerful. And I can, when you told that story, I can envision in my head him sitting on the stage with the little girl doing gypsy thread. And I think that's, to me, what makes magic powerful is the presentation behind it, the comedy behind it. Putting a piece of you into your show, and I mean that's what makes it.
And I mean, I remember in 1980, I think he had his first TV show that came out. And I mean, I'd already been doing magic. I was a teenager, and you know, besides the Tommy Coopers and all the other magicians out there, the Mark Wilsons, and that's what we were kind of used to, the Di Vernons and Slidini. We had never seen somebody do storytelling. And I mean, the impact, that first show that I still sat in my parents' home and watched, I'll never forget that. It blew me away completely. And that's kind of when I made a decision. This I want to do professionally, because this is real magic.
Now, you've been performing for 30 years, and you've performed in 165 countries, if I'm not mistaken.
I stopped counting after that, yeah.
Is there any country that you haven't performed in but you would like to perform in?
You're going to laugh. Australia and New Zealand. If I show you my world map, that's the only places I haven't been. There's no reason. Just randomly, I haven't been there. And I've worked for a lot of Australian and New Zealand companies where I've done conferences for. So I would still like to perform there, because it's also kind of a similar culture to the South African culture as well. But yeah, I would say that. But otherwise, pretty much, I mean, Tristan da Cunha, you know, right, and not far from the Antarctic. I mean, I've done shows in places 1,500 nautical miles on the ice from the North Pole. It's like unbelievable where I've performed.
Now, earlier you mentioned about your Antarctic trip and something bad happening there. Would you care to elaborate a little bit on that?
You see, what I did, because I think I mentioned to you, I started on the bigger ships, got bored with them, and then I wanted to be on the smaller ships with a few guests, maybe 150, 200 guests, because if you're spending a week or 2 weeks with people, you can connect nicely with them. And I was doing expeditions with a German company called Hapag-Lloyd, and they had the Hanseatic. It was the only 5-star icebreaker luxury liner out there. And we actually went on, they phoned me up, it was 97, we went on a expedition to be the first passenger liner to try and get as close to the North Pole as possible. And it was uncharted waters. And one morning, 8 o'clock, the captain walks on the bridge, 8:05, the ship runs aground on an uncharted sandbank. No one had ever been there. And then he tried to put the bow thrusters on to push the ship off. He created an 11-degree list, and there we were stuck. And then by the time from Longyearbyen, the Coast Guard wanted to get to us, the pack ice 4 meter thick had moved around the ship. We were iced in, no one could get to us. You try and do magic at 11 degrees, and oh man, it was an experience and a half. And I mean, pretty much it was near-death experience, but we were all rescued. We kind of made it out there. At the time, you don't think about the seriousness of it. You know, I expand on it in my motivational talk, and I talk about change and living every day as it's your last, living in the moment, respecting others, saying I love you to the people that you love. it was pretty powerful. And that also was like a point in my life where I said, okay, I need to do a bit more than just the entertainment. But if you do work on chips, I mean, now it's maybe different to back then. But damn, there's that movie, The Perfect Storm, from a few years ago. I mean, I was on a ship on the tail end of that perfect storm. I mean, we had experiences. I can spend 3 hours just telling you about weird and funny stuff that happened on ships. It's like, yeah. In fact, I have a book somewhere. Where is it? I'm sure I have. Yeah, is it Working on Ships?
Everything leads back to a book Wolfgang has written.
You said it. But you know what? That's also, jokes aside, when I started Magic, people didn't want to share. And how else will we all grow if we don't share with each other, with the right people? And for me, leaving a legacy is putting those books out there. Because there's one of us saying, if you want to keep something a secret, put it in a book. But for me, it's the more I can share, in 100 years' time, someone's going to go, that guy, man, there was a great tip there. Because we can only learn from each other. And it's no use me dying one day and having kept all the secrets for myself. The more I put out there, the more the next generation can add to that, and we can only improve our art. Isn't that what it's about? To become better and have this great art that everyone respects.
Yes. And like I mentioned before, that's also why we created this, because we want to share with everyone. We want to go and ask people, and we want to ask the questions that other people might not be able to ask the people that we interview, and it's all about sharing it. And then at the end of the day, we can all just have a fun time and learn from each other.
Exactly that.
Anja, I have no further questions. I mean, I do have a few here, but kind of were answered in just us talking. Do you have anything else to say?
I think we can wrap it up unless, Wolfgang, do you have a last tip, last piece of advice, anything you want to say?
No, I ran out of wine. I've got to finish now. I think we pretty much covered it, man. I mean, I can talk for hours, but I mean, I think you want to keep it tight and whatever. So, I mean, thanks for your time. I hope I gave you some good bits of information.
Oh, you did. You did.
Definitely. Thank you for your time. And
yes.
I'm very thankful that you agreed to do this. And I'm really thankful that I'm allowed to call you one of my mentors.
Stunning. We're still going to do a lot of stuff. Your dad has roped me into that as well, so. I look forward to seeing your act now soon.
Okay.
Colin, really, really nice meeting you. You must actually send me your link so I can check you out a bit and see what you do as well. It'd be nice.
Yes.
Enjoy that.
Yeah, Anja's talked a lot about you, and when this whole idea happened, I was on tour all summer when this whole idea of doing a podcast came up, and the first name she mentioned is, we got to get Wolfgang, Colin. You're going to enjoy Wolfgang. We have to interview Wolfgang. And I'm like, okay, we can interview Wolfgang. And it's been really, really fun meeting you, hearing your stories. And it was because our first guest was Lance Burton, and then the next one was Mario the Maker Magician, who are both two people that I've met, I've hung out with, I've been in the same room. And so this one was fun, somebody that I've never chatted with, and I think our viewers are really going to enjoy this episode. I really do.
Cheers. Thanks very much.
Colin, we have to get you down here in Cape Town, because then I can show you the Magic Manor.
Yes, I need to.
We talk about something.
Everyone, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. Wolfgang, thank you again so much for letting us borrow a little bit of time out of your very, very busy day, very busy schedule. We really appreciate it. And I really hope everyone watching this has learned something, has enjoyed it. And I really hope you feel inspired and motivated, and you take some of the stuff that he said and you apply it to your everyday life, your magic, or whatever it may be.
Super. And I'll leave you with a saying that goes, may the magic in your soul lead to the magic in your life.
That's a really good saying. Make the magic in your soul lead to the magic in your life. And I think with that, we're going to say goodbye, and we'll see you on the next episode of Across
the Hemisphere.
And that was it. Did you enjoy that?
I did. Wolfgang. Wow.
I definitely learned a lot. What about you?
I did too. Something he mentioned that really stuck with me with what I wanted, where I see myself in my 5-year plan, is altering your shows so that way different cultures of people can follow along and understand what's going on. And to me, when he went into all that detail, it really stuck with me. And I'll be honest, I wrote it down. You might have not seen me write it down, but I wrote it down to see how I could alter my shows so different cultures and different countries are able to enjoy what the presentation I'm doing on the stage.
Definitely. I'd have to say my favorite part was probably when he talked about how to overcome nerves and how you have to be so comfortable with performing something. You'd have to perform it 100, maybe even 1,000 times over before you do it in front of an audience. So you know you're comfortable, you're hitting all of those cues, and if something goes wrong, you know how to recover because you've practiced it so much. I think that's really, really important. And sometimes I get a new trick and I get really excited and I want to immediately put it in my show, and then show night and it doesn't go so well. So
same here. I've made that mistake. I bought a new thing, and I bought something new and immediately wrote a script for it and threw it in my show about less than a week later without any rehearsal of it whatsoever. And you probably know how that turned out.
But I think with that, I think we should introduce our brand new segment that we kind of teased in the previous episode, the news segment. And welcome to our brand new segment, the news segment, where we talk about the latest and greatest news in Magic and just any and all things related to Magic. Let's start it off with Lance Burton, that is currently on tour, and from what we know, he'll be on tour until May 17th. For more information, visit www.lanceburton.com to find out if and when he's in your city so you can book tickets and go watch him.
Yes, that is right. It's Lance Burton and friends, so he has other performers with him. I'm seeing the show. I already have plans. Middle of January, I'm going to see the show in Kentucky, and I can't wait. I cannot wait. Sticking with this, it's funny that our first two people that we've had on our show have news in the news segment. Lance Burton, and now Mario the Maker Magician. He just finished his off-Broadway run, and you think he would take a break, but no. He is going to Australia and performing at the Adeline Fringe in Australia. MarioTheMakerMagician.com for more information on that.
I really wish I could make it to Australia to see it. If anyone watching this is in Australia or can make it to see the show, please let us know how it is, because I would love to go see it. And now, on the topic of shows, if you've been anywhere close to Magic or in the Magic scene recently, you'll see David Copperfield has been up to some things recently. To address the elephant in the room, he said his new illusion is going to be him making the moon disappear.
How is that even possible?
I don't know. Okay, but to be fair, this is David Copperfield we're talking about. He can probably, I don't know. But
man walked through the Great Wall of China. He can make the moon disappear.
Yeah, easily. All we know is that it's gonna be somewhere in February, so make sure to keep an eye out for that, because Colin, I don't know about you, but I'm super excited.
I am very excited. from what it seems like, if it's like every other David Copperfield television special, it is, of course, well, going to be televised. So we'll just have to see how this is gonna work. I mean, well, not work because David Copperfield, it's all magic. But how's it gonna work with the time delay with him being in Vegas and then there being a 3-hour time difference from where I am, a 10-hour time difference for Anja? I don't know, man. I do not know.
Maybe you'll just look outside your window one night and the moon will just be gone.
Yeah, I mean, is it going to be that way? Will it truly be gone? If I step out my door after he makes the moon disappear and I look up into the sky, will I see the moon or will it truly be gone? I don't know, but February, if I can find the date, I'll put it down here on the screen. It will be popped up here if the date has been announced, but all I've seen is February.
So just keep an eye out for that.
Talking about Vegas, and probably one that I'm really excited for, David Blaine is back in Vegas, baby! Yes, that is correct! David Blaine is back headlining his new show, Impossible. David Blaine will return to his roots at the intimate Encore Theater at the Wynn, Las Vegas, presenting an awe-inspiring close-up magic and new adrenaline-pumping acts that have awarded him worldwide acclaim and fandom for decades. So this is really cool. There's a short trailer out at davidblaine.com that you can go and watch. It almost seems like he's going to be doing his card stuff. If you remember his first time in Vegas, he was at Resorts World and did most of his giant, insane stunts, and it looks like he's toned it back, doing some of his best work ever with playing cards. So is this going to be like his street performance, but in a theater?
I don't know. I mean, when we go to Vegas again, I'm definitely going to stop by and go watch it because, you know, it's David Blaine and he's back in Vegas.
Yes.
So I'm really excited for that. There's so much cool stuff happening at the moment. Like
there is
new shows coming out and people returning, and it's all going to be so fun.
Yeah, because collecting this, I'm like, it's going to be a lot of, look at this new magic trick released by so-and-so. Look at this brand new book. But no, this is shows. Most of these is big-name people releasing brand new shows. And like I said, davidblaine.com, you can buy your tickets there and enjoy yourself at a David Blaine show. Unfortunately, he is back in Vegas, and he started one day after I left Vegas. He started New Year's Eve, and I flew home from Vegas December 30th. So I missed him.
Well, if you still want to get your dose of magic, I mean, Blackpool is coming up February 16th through 18th. So you can always go there and go get a little more of your magic for if you want some.
I don't think I can handle 5,000 magicians. I don't know. I don't know what that would entail of.
If anyone remembers, during the first episode, Gwen spoke a little bit about Blackpool. It's a really, really huge magic convention, and there's over 5,000 magicians there. That it's still so insane to me.
And what's the date again?
It is February 16th through 18th.
Yes, February 16th through the 18th. And apparently, from what I've heard, it's a sight to be held. So maybe I can squeeze into my schedule a trip to Blackpool.
Maybe.
I'm not announcing anything, but maybe I can squeeze in Blackpool into my schedule.
And
but with
if
that,
you're going to Blackpool, please let us know in the comments down below.
Yes.
So if we happen to make it, we know who we can meet there, and we can like meet up and do like a cool chat and whatever. Because you know, magicians getting to know other magicians is always the most fun thing ever.
Maybe we do a whole episode, a whole entire interview of us interviewing people who went to Blackpool. I think that could be fun.
Fun. Let us know your thoughts on that down below as well.
Yes, in the comment section down below, I'll put up our emails if you want to personally email us stuff. And then one day we'll officially have our official Across the Hemisphere email that you can find us at. But till then, email us down below or just leave a simple comment. And with that, that's all the news I think we have.
Yeah, for now. But if you have any interesting news that you find, or if you have a show coming up that you would like us to promote, you can put it in the Google Doc that will be linked in the description down below, and it'll be on the next news segment.
Yes. Anja, this was a killer episode. I have to say it. Loved this episode.
So incredibly fun. I enjoyed it so much, and I really, really hope everyone else enjoyed it too.
You know what? Maybe I just mute our intro and it's just us. And just record us doing that, and that's just the music. It's just us doing that.
You have to do like an acapella. You can do like the tick tick tick, and I'll go the bum 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 bum.